Next up is Bob Quinn, a former state representative and the executive director of the Missouri Association for Social Welfare.
Thank you, Sean. Good afternoon. Thanks for being with us. Some of you have been in the building long enough to remember 25 years ago when I was a new member of the legislature, and I served in the House for 6 years, and I've been in the building ever since in various capacities as a private sector lobbyist and a government official. What I'm doing now with the Missouri Association for Social Welfare is working on issues of social justice in the legislature, and it's a very difficult environment. One of the things that makes it difficult is the involvement of ALEC at the national level. One of the things that's ironic about this is that ALEC pushes as part of its agenda this extreme interpretation of the 10th Amendment that, as I sometimes put it, is if the Civil War didn't ever really happen and federal supremacy was never established, and each state really is kind of like its own country and can do whatever it wants. Now, when you take that extreme view of the 10th Amendment, you would think one of the reasons you're doing that is, well, every state is different. I mean, nobody's going to argue that that's not the case. Every state is different, and it makes sense that laws and regulations that work in one state might not work in another, and you want to have them have maximum ability to be different. And then ALEC pushes these bills that they want every state to adopt so that they'll all be the same in terms of the environment for corporate law, in terms of less regulation on corporations, less taxation on them. Two of the things that we're interested in, that they have really been working on, is first of all these revenue caps, things like Tabor, that restrict the amount of revenue that the state can take in and can spend. Missouri is so close to the bottom now that if you lock in a cap, we're going to be in a hole that we can never get out of in terms of providing decent services for the people of the state. And that's part of their agenda. Other thing is voter suppression. A lot of the things behind new barriers to voting, whether it's new ways of having to prove you're a citizen, which ties in with photo ID, all come from this notion that we will put additional barriers in the way of for people to vote. One assumes that the corporate CEOs and board members of the folks that sponsor ALEC all have these kinds of identification, can easily put their hands on them, and it's folks that are in much more dire straits that are going to have a harder time meeting these new tests. So those are the kinds of extreme things that are in their agenda. And I mean, you know, Missouri legislators have a right to belong to whatever organizations they want to, but by way of full disclosure, an event like today, we can point to how the ideas that come from ALEC are being translated to legislative proposals and law here in Missouri, and we really think that in the interest of transparency, it's important that people see that and see the extreme agenda for it is. And as Sean mentioned, some of the leading corporations in this country who had believed that, well, ALEC's just, you know, like a nice business group, and, you know, we're going to have a nice sort of Chamber of Commerce vision of things that we should be for as businesses, have found that it really is an extreme agenda that they don't want to be any part of.
Thanks so much, Bob.